All right, let's jump right in. When you hear compliance training, you probably picture those mandatory sessions for new employees, right? Or maybe the annual refreshers for the whole staff. But what about the folks in the corner office, the C-suite? Today, we're going to break down why the most powerful people in any company need this kind of training just as much as, and maybe even more than, everyone else.
So, you gotta ask, is this training really just for the people on the front lines? There's this unspoken assumption out there that executives kind of get a pass, that they're too busy or they've seen it all. But what if that idea isn't just wrong? What if it's actually dangerous?
To really get it, we have to talk about tone at the top. It's a simple idea, but it's incredibly powerful. Basically, the entire ethical vibe of an organization is set by its leaders. Your employees are smart. They pay way more attention to what the execs do than what the company handbook says. This is the absolute bedrock of a healthy compliance culture.
And that leads us right into our first big section, the C-suite's blind spot. This is that critical, dangerous gap where the people with the most power are often the ones who get the least training on the rules they're supposed to be championing.
This quote really nails it. A real compliance program has to start at the top. When the leaders aren't involved, you're not just risking a fine, you're risking the trust of your own people. But when they are involved, the benefits are huge. Better retention, happier employees, and a stronger company overall. It's not just a nice to have, it's a strategic necessity.
So what happens when that tone at the top is, let's just say, a little off-key? Well, the consequences are never small. Let's take a look at a couple of real-world examples of what happens when ethics fail at the highest levels.
First up, the Volkswagen emissions scandal. Now, this wasn't just a few rogue engineers making a mistake. No way. The decision to install those defeat devices to cheat on emissions tests, that was a strategic decision, driven from the top down, all to get a leg up on the competition.
And the fallout was just staggering. We're talking billions with a B in fines. Executives were actually facing prison time. The stock price fell off a cliff. A brand that was built on trust and reliability became a symbol of corporate cheating. That reputational damage is the kind of thing that lasts for years.
Okay, next example, Wells Fargo. Now, this was a totally different kind of failure, but the root cause was exactly the same, a toxic tone at the top. Upper management created this incredibly aggressive, high-pressure sales culture that literally pushed employees into creating millions of fake accounts just to hit impossible targets.
And the result was nothing short of a complete corporate meltdown. Again, billions in penalties. The leadership team was forced to resign in disgrace. And they absolutely shattered the trust of their customers, something the bank is still trying to fix. It's just another perfect, painful example of how a bad tone at the top leads directly to disaster.
Okay, so we've seen the risks. It's pretty clear that ignoring this is a huge gamble. So let's flip it around. What's the solution? Let's talk about what a real, effective compliance program for executives actually looks like. Look, the training for the C-suite can't be the same old stuff. It's got to be about the high-stakes decisions they face. For instance, they need to deeply understand anti-corruption laws for global deals or their personal liability in a massive data breach. It's about how they lead on creating a workplace free of harassment and championing diversity. This is about strategic risk management, not just checking a box. But here's a massive structural problem you see in so many companies. For compliance to have any real power, the chief compliance officer needs a direct, unfiltered line to the CEO and the board. But as you can see here, in nearly 70% of companies, that just doesn't happen. The message gets watered down, it gets filtered, or it gets ignored completely. Of course, knowing what executives should do is one thing. Getting them to actually do it, that's a whole other ballgame. These are busy, confident people, and getting them to sit down for training can be a real challenge.
We've all heard the excuses, haven't we? The classic, I have no time. The solution? Make the training short, sharp, and on demand. Then you've got, this stuff is irrelevant to me. The answer there is to customize it with real-world scenarios they'd actually face. And my favorite, I've seen it all. Well, you frame the training as an essential briefing on new and emerging risks, like AI ethics or new ESG rules. It's about staying ahead of the curve, not just reviewing the basics.
Now for some good news. The culture is definitely starting to shift. There's a growing understanding of this problem at the highest levels. We're seeing more and more boards of directors mandating this kind of training for themselves. That sends a powerful message all the way down the ladder. No one is above the rules.
So far, we've talked a lot about avoiding disaster, which is obviously crucial. But the real reason to do this isn't just about dodging bullets. When you truly invest in executive compliance, there are some incredibly positive payoffs that can literally transform a company.
When your leaders are genuinely bought in, you get this amazing trickle-down effect. The whole company culture gets stronger, your employees feel safer, they trust management more, and they're more likely to stay. And over the long haul, all of this builds confidence with your investors, your customers, and your partners, which leads to better, more sustainable success.
And if you need one more number to drive it home, look at this. 73%. That's how many business leaders themselves say that having a strong compliance program improves how their company is seen by everyone. This isn't just a theory. The people in charge already know it's a fact. And that brings us to the big takeaway. The smartest companies today have stopped looking at compliance like it's a chore or a cost. They see it for what it really is, a powerful competitive advantage. Leading with integrity from the very top is how you build a resilient company that's ready for the long run.
So we'll end with a question for you to think about, for your own organization. When you look at your leadership, are they a compliance asset, actively making the company stronger and more ethical? Or are they, maybe without even realizing it, a liability just waiting to happen?